Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. I'm Mary Fran Bontempo with my buddy, Kristen Smedley. And we have a great guest for you today, somebody that I feel like I've known forever and ever and literally just virtually met last week. Welcome, Carol Lempert. We had so many things in common when we talked last week. Carol's background is that of an actress, and I was an actress in my younger days, back in the
Wow.
thespian I was. I did back in high school and all that stuff, and I sang professionally, church sang, so I know my limitations. But Carol actually has a professional career to speak of in that light, and she's doing work in resiliency today, which is why we wanted to bring her on to talk to everybody. So Carol, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And it feels like we know each other, not just in terms of our creative backgrounds, but the resiliency work and just kind of how we think about the world. So it was that great conversation
Yes.
we had last week.
I'm not sure I would admit that too much because people who think the same way that we do are sometimes looked at with like, oh,
Warning labels.
ah,
Warning labels we come with.
warning labels. So anyway, I want to hear a little bit about your professional background in the acting world because that's so fun to me. Then that's something that, who hasn't wanted to be, what little girl hasn't wanted to be an actress at one point in
Mhm.
her life, and
Yeah.
that's not the easiest thing to achieve. So give us some of your background, and then I want to get into your resiliency work.
Absolutely. So I was that little girl that on Saturday mornings was watching Shirley Temple tap dance and like, oh, that looks fun. I want to do that. So I love to sing. I love to dance. When I was a kid, I was in all the choirs. And I just had an affinity for, there's two different kinds of actors in the world. And I think I didn't realize this until I started studying more seriously when I was older. But even as a kid, there are the kind of actors that love to be in the spotlight and get all of the attention. And we love to watch those people. Robin Williams was that kind of an actor and comedian. And then there are the actors that are interested in acting because they're interested and fascinated in the human condition. And by
Hmm.
playing lots of different kinds of characters, it is a way to explore the human condition and to bring that story to an audience. So Meryl Streep is more of that kind of an actress. Julianne Moore is more of that kind of an actress. And I fall more into that camp. And I think that that is partly why I transitioned into doing coaching work with people, teaching people how to show up in business with more executive presence. It's my acting background that informs a lot of the corporate work that I do. I teach people how to increase their executive presence. And now I talk about telepresence because we're all living in the box now. By teaching the skills that actors use to understand stage presence and screen presence. And that transition to be able to help other people, I think, is informed from the kind of an actor that I actually am.
I just love the way you put that because honestly, I've never heard it put like that before, but you're exactly spot on with the different types of personalities that we see in actors. And again, the little bit that I did when I was a kid in school and all, I was shy and not comfortable in myself. So it was an opportunity to sort of get into somebody else
Yeah.
and be somebody else. And I've heard that a lot from other actors, but the idea of exploring those other parts of the human personality and the quirks and all that, and you do hear that a lot from people who have difficult, challenging roles and how they've had to get into that person and figure out the mindset. And that's, I guess it's good. I guess it's good in ways because how does that affect you as an individual when you get into those places?
Well, I'll even take that one step further. When I go into corporate and I'm coaching people and I'm helping them through a difficult leadership situation, I often talk about the fact that as leaders and in life, we play many different kinds of roles. And I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a niece, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a neighbor, I'm a wife. We all have this suite of roles that we play, and we do it intuitively. Like I'm different at synagogue or church than I am on the soccer field, or if I'm in the stands cheering somebody on. Different parts of our personality come out. And so in corporate, sometimes you have to teach people that you can explicitly choose to step into a role in a certain kind of way. As a
Hmm.
leader, I need to coach my people, but sometimes I need to collaborate with my people. And sometimes there's a quick decision that needs to be made, and I have to be the captain of the ship and make the decision and move forward. And so we all step into different kinds of roles in our life. And I use theater as the metaphor and theater exercises to help people figure out how to do that. So to your question, I think that as young people, when we're trying to figure out who we are, we're exploring different parts of our identity. And we might not feel permission in the world at large to just go out in the world and maybe be a little bit more sexy or maybe be a little bit more assertive. That I think kids that are attracted to being in shows are exploring those parts of their personality to figure out who they're going to be, to explore their identity.
That's really amazing.
I'm having a massive aha moment.
Oh,
And I will try to do this as quick as possible because my aha moments tend to be a little crazy. Here's what I'm thinking. No one's going to believe this, but I was very shy when I was younger, like painfully shy when I was younger. And I was very good at school. So I was called upon to do a lot of the speaking stuff and like talking in church and doing readings. And I can remember my whole body shaking, right? My parents ran our youth group in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade at our church. And my dad, he's hilarious. And he tries all these wild things. See where I get all this craziness from? So he did this after dinner theater thing. And it was like, you had these little silly, like skits. It was all little skits. And I remember the first time doing it, and mine was like this crazy shampoo joke, right?
Okay.
And I had to dress up. I think I love that I got to be somebody else.
Yes.
And I took the microphone, and the whole place, it was the dumbest joke, but the whole place cracked up laughing. And that I was just all of a sudden back in that moment of how I felt when the whole place started laughing. And do you know, Carol, to this day, my favorite part of being on stage and giving a speech, even though my story tends to be very hard to share, it's when people laugh that I get this, it's like in my DNA that makes me me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when I know I've connected with an audience. That's when, and interestingly enough, my kids have this thing about, like with my boys being blind, they tend to make jokes that aren't like poking fun at them, but they make people relax because they're funny about it. And it's like carrying through I guess it's something with our family that I learned that years ago. And then it just keeps going. But that's interesting. I forgot all about that moment of the diet shampoo. That was my line.
That's what it was, the diet shampoo.
Diet shampoo. It's for fatheads. That was my joke.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. So you had this big aha because you thought you were playing somebody else. And in fact, what you were doing is pulling out this part of your personality that you hadn't yet put on display in front of a big group of people. And the laughter that came back to you was this, it's love. Like when you get an audience laughing together, we're getting mirror neurons firing, we're getting motor neurons firing, we're actually having this connective experience. And you were the catalyst for that connective experience, which it sounds like that has become what your life's journey has been all about, to be the catalyst for a collective experience.
Wow. How about that?
Wow. How about you? Collective experience.
Look at
Holy
me.
cow.
All
Like
smarty pants and all.
Live, right? I mean, that's what Brilliantly Resilient is all about. We're broadcasting out to whoever's watching right now and whoever might watch later, for you too, and you specifically, to be the catalyst for a collective experience. And everybody kind of rises as a result.
You know, Kristen and I talk about using transferable skills with this whole Brilliantly Resilient thing. But in some ways, those parts of our personality are also transferable skills, just to put it in that context, that we can utilize at different times. But I really like how you put that when we are in these kind of assigned roles in our lives, and we don't think about the fact that we can access those other parts, those other roles as needed. And I just really love the fact that you not only show people that they have those things or make them aware that they have them, but sort of give them permission to say, okay, now you can be this, because that's what's called for right now.
That's right. You can step into that role. You can figure out how you're going to play the scene. I talk about that a lot too. I have to go have a difficult conversation with one of my employees. Well, that would be a really riveting scene in a play. You have to play the scene. And if you were going to write it as a scene for the theater, you might write it really dark and ugly. If you're going to play the scene at work, you want to have a successful outcome. So what's the version of yourself you need to take into the room to have a successful outcome, to have the conversation with that person?
My gosh, I could just listen to you talk about this kind of stuff all day, but I do want to move into your the resiliency work that you were actually asked to do that by a client. So, and I think as we're talking, I'm getting the idea that resiliency really does go hand in hand with the other work that you're talking about, because you are talking about being resilient in different circumstances with different parts of your personality. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking about that. So I'm not someone, I know both of your stories and around how you came to be doing this work and resilience. I didn't have a sucker punch moment in my life. And to have a successful career as an actor and not just be in a play or two, but like you have an agent, you're going to auditions, you're meeting casting directors. So I'm a member of Screen Actors Guild. I'm a member of American Actors Equity, so they keep data and statistics. So on average, a working actor goes to 50 auditions before they book a job.
Wow.
Yeah. So imagine going to 50 job interviews before you got a job, and then the job itself only lasts for a week or 6 months, and then you have to go and do that again and get another job. So that's the day-to-day life of what it is to be an actor, to get work and to get paid, and then to go, and it's project-based life, so to go and find the next project. In order to live through 49 consecutive rejections before you get the job at the 50th audition, which is pretty much what the data is telling us, on average it's 50, you need to be resilient because it is not pleasant.
Boy, I'll say that's not for the faint of heart. Holy cow.
I mean, it's not a big sucker punch, but it's jab, 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 jab,
Yes.
jab.
Well, and sometimes that little pecking at you can be just as break you down just as easily as a big thing. So, holy cow.
And I had a really interesting insight when I was in theater school. There was a particular woman I was very jealous of, and she got cast as all the leads, and I was often her understudy, or I often got the smaller part in the show, and everyone thought she was going to go and she was going to be the star. I won't say her name just to, protect her reputation. And within 2 years, she was married with 3 kids and had left the business. Not because she had 3 kids and got married and she only wanted to raise her family. She found the business really difficult. She didn't find acting difficult. She found the business difficult because theater school prepared her to be an actress. It didn't prepare her to be someone who was going out and being basically a solopreneur. You're running your own business when you're an actor. She had not yet built, through 4 years of theater school, resilience. And I had built that resilience because I kept auditioning for things I really wanted to get cast in, not getting cast, getting the smaller part, getting the understudy part, and just having to say, okay, you got to pick yourself up and do the best you can and try again next time, and then try again next time, and then try again next time. So I've had a 30 some odd year career, and she was at it for 2 years and has a lot of sadness about the fact that nothing ever happened for her.
Wow.
So it's a skill, and it's not a skill. It is brilliant that you are teaching it, which is why resilient is such a brilliant name for what you're working on. I don't think people realize that it is a skill. I think many people understand after they've had a sucker punch in their life, after they've had something really difficult, and in your case, Mary Fran, about your son, and in your case, Kristen, about you're raising your 2 sons and trying to figure out how to advocate for them in the world and helping teach them how to advocate for themselves. Sometimes people are having to recover from divorce situations, or they recently, thousands of people, 20% of the population, I think the recent statistic is furloughed or unemployed. And if you hadn't ever been unemployed before, that is something that you're going to need to pull up your resilience for as well, dealing with what's going on with that pandemic. We're all having to deal with that kind of sucker punch. So people can and do, as you 2 ladies did, build their resilience because they had a sucker punch.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that you can preload your ability to what I call bounce, to be a little bit buoyant. And the metaphor that I use when I teach, and I actually use this in the course that I put together, is imagine 3 round objects sitting in front of you. One is a Christmas tree ornament, one is an egg, and one is a rubber ball. And if I take the Christmas tree ornament and I hold it up in the air and I drop it, it's going to shatter into a million pieces. If I take that egg and I hold it up into the air and I drop it, it's going to make a big mess on the floor. The shards of the shell might not go as far as the Christmas tree ornament, but it's going to crack and break. If I take a rubber ball and I drop it, that's going to bounce. We have three objects, round objects about the same size. What's the difference? The material that they're made of, the stuff that they're made of. And we can either walk around in the world being fragile, like a Christmas tree ornament, so the minute that we get that sucker punch, we're going to crack and break. Or we can move through the world and start to build the skills and the tenacity to be able to bounce when the hard things come, which is often why people who've been through hard things once, it's easier for them to go through hard things again, because what they've learned between the first time and the second time is exactly what you two talk about and teach, is the resiliency.
Yeah. You know, we had my boys on not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago. And what I've realized is, you know, I'm always trying to look for the we call them blind perks in my house. What are the bonuses to being blind? You know, it used to be you got to the front of the line in Disney World. Like that was a big one then when they were little. But what I've realized in all of this work and resiliency and where the world is right now, my boys have a huge advantage over everyone else in their age group. And because they have been having to be resilient every single day, and a lot of times, multiple times a day, because like you're saying, those little pecks, those little, oh, the teacher forgot to braille this. Oh, this kid doesn't understand blindness. Oh, I got to figure out how to order food in the cafeteria. They are constantly problem solving.
Yes.
So now that they go out in the world, I mean, Michael in college, people have never seen anything like it. And I'm like, that's because he's been practicing his whole life.
Exactly.
Now's his time to shine. Whereas everyone else in his age group is, like you're saying, they're the Christmas ornament or they're the egg. They've never had this where they've had to figure things out, which is where I tend to talk to a lot of my girlfriends and moms groups that we're getting in their way. So not figuring things out on their own. They're not becoming that material of the rubber ball.
Yes.
We're sending ornaments out in the world.
And I love the way that you just talked about this with your son. They were practicing it every day. Resilience isn't something that suddenly you just have and then that's it. Check. Okay, check. I'm resilient now. It needs something to be practiced every single day.
Yeah.
You know, I think people, it's not a word that's easily embraced because it's associated with challenges and hardships.
Yeah.
But what Kristen and I try to tell people is we all have that in us inherently as children.
Yes.
You don't get up and walk the first time. We don't, you know, as children, we don't see failure, and I'm air quoting this, failure as a bad thing. We see it as part of the process of learning.
Yes.
And it's just something that goes along with it. Oh, I fell down. Well, what did I learn when I fell down that I can tweak what I am doing to make it better the next time? So when people can recognize that this is already an inherent part of them and not see that having to be resilient is a sign of failure and problems, it's just a sign on the process of learning, I think they're more easily able to tap into the fact that, look, you've already got this. You just have to learn how to flex that muscle again, because we don't name it as kids.
Sometimes you have to relearn how to flex the muscle, because if you are a human being that is walking, you learned how to walk, which means you fell down a lot of times and you kept getting back up. And the very last time you got up, you stayed up. So you know how to do that. You just have to relearn and remind yourself that you know how to do that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So when we were talking last week, you mentioned something to me that I really frankly hadn't heard of before, but at the same time, after I did a little bit more, studying about it, I thought this is all the stuff Kristen and I talk about. And it was something about the 6 domains of resiliency.
Yes.
And you talked about some other things that I want to get into about self-care and collaboration and all the stuff that dovetails with our brilliantly resilient thing. I want to make sure that people understand that the way we talk about these things, although the language might be different, the concepts are the same. We're all talking about the same really basic skills that are accessible to everyone.
Yes, yes. There's been a big push in underprivileged schools to teach grit, what they call grit, what we call resilience, to kids. Much as you're talking about in your work, Kristen, that your sons built this because you instilled it in them, because you advocated for them and they learned how to advocate for themselves. So they understood that it's a skill, and if you're going to teach it to children, you have to break it down into small pieces so that you can teach it to children. And so they came up with this idea of these 6 domains of grit, or these 6 domains of resiliency. And the first basic one is around maintaining your health, your psychological, your spiritual, your physical, your emotional health. And so that is where the self-care comes in. in modern culture, when we talk about self-care, there's often this idea of it's pampering. I'm going to take a bubble bath and surround myself with candlelight and put on some gorgeous music. And
Does anybody ever really do that? 'Cause I don't know anybody who has the time to do that. I'd like to do it, but I don't know. I don't know
there you
anybody
go.
that does it.
There
I
you
don't
go.
have enough
Go to
candles.
the spa. People pay money to go to the spa, to have someone else do that for them. And those are lovely. I'm not saying you shouldn't ever do that in your life. That's different than self-care. Self-care is when I get up in the morning, I make my bed because I am worth having a nice place to live in. I make sure that I drink water before I'm thirsty. I eat 3 meals a day with healthy food and not a whole bunch of sugar just to kind of get me over the hump. Those day-to-day boring things to make sure that you take care of yourself. Because when the sucker punch comes, and for everyone at some point in their life, it will come. We don't know what it will look like, but there will be something. If you're physically and emotionally not strong because you haven't taken care day by day by day, it's going to be much harder to bounce back. So that first domain is around health. The second, what they call collaboration, what you would call having friends and family.
Your tribe, our tribe.
Your tribe, that's how you
Yeah,
talk about it.
tribe, yeah.
Tribe. So in this framework, they talk about it as collaboration. And the idea is that there are people that you can call for help. And the research that they've done says it's not just that there are people that you can call for help or that you actually call them for help. It's knowing that there are people that you can call for help. So one of the exercises that I do in my workshop is get a piece of paper, write down the number of people, the names of the people that you could call if you really needed to. Family, friends, neighbors, people from your high school, people you haven't seen 20 years ago. How many people are really on that list? And many people, and for some people, they're like, oh, just go on Facebook. Like there they are, 300 people, there they all are. And maybe 200 of them would come to your need if you actually ask them. So it's not just having them, it's knowing that you have them. And in knowing that you have them, psychologically, you give yourself a little bit more of that material that makes you more resilient. I can get help if I need help. And here are the people I can call upon. They talk about that as collaboration. You talk about that as tribe.
Yeah.
The next one is tenacity, which sounds like, Kristen, you have in spades and you've injected into your children in spades. And tenacity is just what you were just talking about, Mary Fran, that knowing that when you fall up, when you fall down, you're going to get back up. Like you're just going to stick with it. It doesn't matter what the obstacles are. I'm going to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is this idea of having a vision, a goal, a picture for yourself about what you want to do in your life or with your life. So in corporate, that is a space where we often spend a lot of time talking. Often people will take jobs because they have the skills, because they need to feed their families, but they haven't really thought in the bigger vision, how is this job helping me manifest why I'm on the planet? What is it about doing this particular job that manifests why I'm on the planet? And a lot of people don't love their jobs. It doesn't mean that it's not a way to help manifest why they are on the planet. So
that's one of the things that I really love that you talked about that, because when we talked earlier last week, you and I were talking about this, and I wrote brilliance in that section because when we talk about brilliance, yes, if everybody could manifest their brilliance and make it be their career and make $1 bajillion and all, that would be wonderful. But that's not always possible. However, that doesn't mean that you can't bring your brilliance to your particular circumstances.
Yes.
And figure out how to manifest that where you are right now.
Yes. So for me, my dad was I lost him about 5 years ago, but my dad worked in construction. He was a contractor. I'm the oldest of 3. And he decided, no daughter of mine is going to be afraid to get herself dirty. So when I was about 10 years old, he started taking me with him on job sites. And the very first job that we ever went to was at this one, we're going to go to Mrs. Greenblatt's house. Okay, we have to fix a hole in her ceiling. We're going to go to Mrs. Greenblatt's house. So we get to her house and he hands me these 2 pink shower caps. I should put them on my shoes because we're going to go into Mrs. Greenblatt's house. We can't make her carpet dirty. And he puts them on his shoes and we look at a couple of clowns. I think this is the best thing ever. And roll plastic out and we carry in all the tools and we work all day. And, he's climbing ladders. I'm holding up screwdrivers and stuff. But like, it's so exciting to be there with my dad. And at the end of the day, we clean everything up, we carry everything out, we take off the pink shower caps off our shoes, we go home. Next day, I hop in the van. Where are we going today? Back to Mrs. Greenblatt's house. Oh, we drive again. We do this whole same routine again. We put on the shower caps, we roll out the plastic, we carry in the tools, and it took 45 minutes. And I was like, Daddy, if we knew that we were coming back here, why didn't we leave all the stuff here? If we were coming back here, it would be faster. And he said to me, Carol, Mrs. Greenblatt doesn't just hire us to fix the hole in her ceiling. Mrs. Greenblatt hires us to make it nicer than we found it. And that's every day, not just when we get paid at the end of the job.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's my vision. Make it nicer than you found it. Now, in my work, that translates to that the audience should have an amazing time when they come to see a show. And when I'm teaching, that they get a little kernel, a little nugget, a little something that it makes them a little bit more efficient, a little brighter, a little smarter, a little more emotionally intelligent, whatever the thing is that's going to help them, that because I crossed paths with those people, I made them nicer. Not that they weren't nice people, but they're better for having had an interaction with me. That's my vision. So even if I'm doing a job I hate, the task, let's say I'm flipping burgers at some restaurant, and I'm not very domestic, and I'm not very domestic. My husband's the cook in my family. If my vision is make it nicer than I found it, it doesn't matter about the burgers. It matters about make it nicer than you found it. So getting people to figure that out for themselves, that helps them be more buoyant, because then they know why they're on the planet, and they can feed that every day, no matter what's going on.
Right. And they can bring a little bit of that spark. I think people feel like they need this big experience to be able to bring their spark to the world. And what you're saying is that every single person can do that every single day. You can bring a bit of your brilliance to everything that you do every day. Maybe not every single thing. I mean, let's face it, when you're loading the laundry machine or the dishwasher or whatever, you're not necessarily accessing your brilliance, but there are opportunities within your day to access even a little bit of your brilliance and show that and share that with the world. I just love that.
Yeah. And what I'll connect the dots back to, Mary Fran, when you're loading the dishwasher or you're loading the laundry, that's not the domain of resilience that you're in. When you're doing those things, you're in the domain of resilience of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So there is a way to reconnect all of that and recognize that every action has the potential to serve your growth of your resilience and your growth of your brilliance if you frame it correctly. I just love that.
Yeah.
So you are doing these programs now. I mean, I can't believe we've been at this for about a half an hour already. I mean, I could just talk to you all day. So did we cover all of the areas of resiliency before?
2 domains of resiliency. So I'll give you an option. I can just tell you quickly what they are. There's 2 words, I can say it. Or we could continue a conversation another time. We could keep it as a cliffhanger.
Well, we'll probably do that, but I don't want to leave people without the last 2. So let's talk about that before we tell folks where they can find you.
Absolutely. So I'll recap. There's health. There's collaboration, which you call tribe. There's tenacity, just kind of grit, sticking with it. There's this vision. Why am I on the planet? What's my brilliance, my personal brilliance? Then there's composure, what they call composure, which some people refer to as emotionally intelligent, that you know what you're feeling at any given moment in time, and then you can manage how it is what you're feeling. So,
well, that's one we have to work on, Kay. We have to work on the composure part.
Not where our brilliance lies.
Not one of our strong suits.
Well, so you know what you're feeling. It seems like you can identify it, and then how do you manage it? That's the second piece, right?
That's interesting, though. Yeah, and I think identifying that is a huge part, because sometimes, especially when we have intense emotions, they wash over us, and it's like that wave that just takes control of you. And what you're saying is there is an opportunity to recognize it, take a breath, and go, okay, this is happening now. How do I handle this?
Mm-hmm. And to think about when that wash comes over us, to really decipher, okay, it's a sensation in my body. What is the sensation in my body when I feel overwhelmed? Ooh, I get that nauseous, this is me personally, I get that nauseous feeling in my stomach. I get that kind of chest beating. I can feel my heart kind of like a cartoon heart, pumping in and out. When I can identify the sensations in my body, and that it's not about the emotion, it's about what's the physical sensation in my body, that's how I can start to control it. Okay, I take a breath and I feel my heart slowing down. I take a drink of water. I feel my stomach starting to settle. When you can identify what the physical sensations are. So that's composure. And the very last one is reasoning, that once you have composure and vision, then you can think through, okay, I just got a sucker punch. I'm in a pickle. What are my options? write them down. What are the pros and cons of doing the next smart thing or the next healthy thing? And we just take it one step at a time. So the last is around reasoning.
That's
So
probably where my perception stuff comes in, probably in reasoning. But interestingly enough, I didn't realize about the composure part. And that's where I have been living for the past, especially the past few months, but the past 4 years since my divorce journey began. I have been doing a ton of research into like that. What is that called with the enneagram or whatever that is? What is that?
yes.
Numbers?
Yes.
You know, and love languages, all those things of trying to figure out what makes me tick and what makes me, because I was so lost in all of my roles of life. But I've been doing a lot, especially the past couple of months, a lot of work in that, which is where that composure and the reaction, because I do that now. I go, ooh, why am I feeling like this? Why, you know, and I do this thing on Sunday mornings on my speaker page with faith music, Christian rock stuff. I just said yesterday, I get when I have this like feelings hurt and my heart is hurting. It's like knives going across my chest. That's the thing I've been realizing lately. I actually put words to it and know when it's happening.
Yeah.
Now I got to figure out what to do next. I'm in this
the questions I would ask you, Kristen, these knives, is the knife in your own hand? Is the knife coming from someone else's hand? Who's doing the stabbing when that sensation happens? That would be the question I would ask you to think about.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, because it just goes across like, oh my God, like it's horrific. Oh, that's what I have to think about now.
If there's
You're welcome, Kay. Your therapy session for the day. This is my gift to you. Carol's my gift to you.
That would be the thing to percolate on. You don't have to answer that publicly, but that would be the next question to ask yourself to practice composure, right? Oh, I'm feeling that knife sensation that I get. All right, who's holding the knife? How fast is it going? How slow is it going? What is it diverting me from? What's the other thing that it's diverting me from feeling? If what I'm feeling is the knife, what am I not feeling because I'm feeling the knife? Those are all the second layer questions to help you practice composure.
Wow. Yet again, this is helping Kristen and not everybody else. No,
this is why we do this show. We say it all the time. We brought this to help the world. And at the end of it, we're like, wow, did you hear that? We're finally figuring ourselves out. It's taken us to do it.
Fantastic.
But it's because you're building you're building tribe, you're building collaboration with people. It is in listening to other people have conversations that we often get insights about ourselves. So that's the gift that both of you are giving everybody. It's amazing.
Exactly. And we're helping ourselves, which is really what it's all about, right, Ken? It's all about us.
Like the tagline of the show should be, you think you've got issues. Wait till you see if we can fix them, you're going to have 100% accuracy with getting yourself together.
Well, Carol, this has just been a delightful conversation, and we will totally have to have you back because I can see both in Kristen's face and in mine that we want more. So to that end, tell people where they can find you so they can get more.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I'd be more than happy to chat with anybody in your tribe that I feel like I've got to join now. It's Carol Lempert, CarolLem, like lemon, P like Peter, ERT. CarolLempert.com is my website. I'm on LinkedIn, same thing is my name. I'm on Twitter at Carol Lempert, and I have a Facebook page, which is more my corporate stuff, which is Carol Lempert Speaking. So I'd be more than happy to connect with anybody. Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such an enlightening conversation. And again, we dovetailed so nicely on so many points. And I'm so happy that you used the language that you use because people connect with things in different ways. And just to say that different language doesn't mean the concepts are different. It's just a different way of looking at it and hopefully made it accessible to some people. Yes. So thank you for joining us. Everybody, please get more of Carol Lempert because as you can see, delightful and so full of insight and information. And take care, look her up. We will have her back again and we will see you all next time on Brilliantly Resilient Live.
See ya.
See ya. Thank you.